So this is John, and John is one of the many faces of poverty. Backbreaking, soul-crushing, and extreme poverty is an ever-demanding journey. And they say, sometimes it's someone else's story that changes your own. And mine had to do with this very special someone that I met in Washington, D.C. John, that was actually the Western name this Messiah was given himself, not his real name, was attending a meeting at an international organization called the World Bank Group. And this is where I worked. As a communications specialist, I focus on eradicating extreme poverty in Latin America and Africa, and John joined this meeting as an official representative of his tribe. Now, funnily, John told me in the first day during the workshop, he said, Claudia, wow, those traffic lights, jam traffic, people in suit and ties, and everyone is just something that overwhelms me. He was mesmerized and terrified at the same time. And as mesmerized and terrified as John was, as terrified I was to hear stories from a northern Kenyan village on how drought, famine, extreme poverty, and malnutrition killed more than a third of the children in his village. So also it was John's daughter of 3 years old who was amongst those kids who passed away. And let me tell you, if you hear something like that, it is heartbreaking. Now think about again, John being one of the many faces of extreme poverty. Nearly 1.3 billion people remain to live in extreme poverty on less than $1.90 a day. $1.90 is a poverty measurement baseline that is based towards a person's daily nutrient consumption. And think about my Starbucks morning and the coffee cost me more than $1.90 a day. Out of a half of 1.3 billion, people live in India and China, and 800 million people lack adequate access to clean drinking water, sanitation, and electricity. Now, to give an example again of John's daughter and the third of the children in his village, it is imperative that a child receives the right nutrients in the first 1,000 days of his or her life, because otherwise a child will never be able to have the right cognitive receptors to be economically viable, to create a life, a career, and the passion for themselves, and to be responsible for their own family and society. Now, John told me on the third day of this workshop, which all over lasted 7 days, by the way, that he feels that we as a society sometimes have the societal colorblindness. We simply do not realize what is happening in the world, and we get stuck in our own little comfort zone. So I realized for myself that even though I work with the topic on eradicating extreme poverty, that poverty and global extreme poverty seems for anyone to be this huge and insurmountable problem too big to solve. But let me tell you, by creating my own United Nations of I, that it is possible to do so. So in my day job, I work for the United Nations in Washington, D.C., and I focus on Sustainable Development Goal number 2. In total, we have 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and Sustainable Development Goal number 2 focuses on ending hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition. And what I am putting myself on is to create a society by 2030 where no one and no vulnerable person and no child will ever be hungry again. Now, really funnily, I came at the age of 19 from a small town in Austria called Jennersdorf to the global arena. And as an adult third culture kid and global citizen, and academically trained interpreter, I realized that there are a lot of Johns along the way, but how those Johns and people who live on the margins of our society do not have a marginal mind. They merely are not given the same opportunities as we are. And that is something that made me extremely sad and somewhat made me realize that now is a better time than ever to even create the United Nations of yourself. Now, I think we people as a society sometimes need to come this Jesus moment with ourselves. those personal come to Jesus moments, and mine was during a panel at the World Bank Group, and I love to call it a panel of dudes, because it was just dudes and myself. We were speaking about eradicating extreme poverty, what we can do to implement change on a communal level, and during a Q&A, a woman came up to me, or she asked a question in the audience, and she said, okay, Claudia, so you monetize with being that game changer, that big shot in Washington, D.C., the one who shakes it, which I am not, by the way. But what is it actually that you're really doing to implement that change? And I said, well, I sit on the board of 4 NGOs, pro bono. I work with cross-cultural communication, women empowerment. Isn't that enough? And then the panel was over. I left to go back to my desk, and I thought, gosh, wow. I am just as societal colorblind as John predicted all the other people to be. So something else has got to give, and I have to do more to not only provoke that change I want to see in my work, but also the change I want to see in my personal life. And that was my own little come to Jesus moment where I realized that I want to live my life according to the Bible of Claudia, or Bible of Clau, as some people say. Now, I decided, after some soul searching, to get out of my societal colorblindness and to join a network of 14 mid-career professionals within the World Bank Group that is called the Youth-to-Youth Community. We are a community that channels fresh ideas into existing World Bank Group operations and that tries, with the support of leadership, with the World Bank president in the middle here, to truly change the narrative from the inside out. So I have created my own United Nations of I by becoming an entrepreneur within my organization. An entrepreneur who changes the narrative from the inside out. And I've realized, such as I work for the Sustainable Development Goal number 2 in my work, I need to find out what are my own sustainable development goals. And my own sustainable development goals for myself were 3 pillars. I realized that I have a very good capability in fundraise money and convince people to give money, that I have a certain language capabilities, and that I've created enough credibility within my community to truly get a crowd engaged. So I had my 3 sustainable development goals, I created my United Nations of I, and I had one slogan that still sticks with me throughout my career, which is, it only takes one vision for a common mission. Now, within the Youth-to-Youth community, we created the Youth Innovation Fund. We fundraised over the course of 1 year, $150,000 for 10 projects that were implemented with $15,000 each. What does that mean? We realized that there is a monetary value you can put on change, mainly the power of 15K. Now, what we did is we engaged and rallied people within our community, within the organizations that we worked for, and said, look, guys, you want to implement change? Well, you have to do something. Give us a proposal on what it is that you want to do. And we received about 120 proposals, out of which we selected 10 during a non-biased jury, and we then measured them towards a baseline on good governance, transparency, and due diligence. Just like it was John's story, one project I co-led with my team and I, a special shout out goes to Angela, Minhei, and Inka and Sarah, was in the Cape Lands of South Africa. You're able to see the Cape Lands in South Africa that are known for its amazing wine, for its picturesque scenery, but they're also known for bearing a story and history of disenfranchisement and elusiveness towards black and colored people that is still part of the apartheid system. So one problem that this wineland also had was due to the fact that a lot of workers worked on farms, and farm owners merely did not pay their workers in salaries, but yet in alcohol, which then rose the level of alcohol abuse tremendously, and 88% of all young people were not able to finish school. So what we did, we brought the power of 15K to this area in South Africa, and a young agriculture women program was created where 46 young women towards the age of 14 to 18 participated. And we were able to give them something that they've never seen before. We were able to give them empowerment. We were able to give them expert. We were able to give them expertise and experience. And through a career writing workshop, those women learned skills they otherwise would have not been able to learn. Through basically learning tangible organic farming skills, we were able to take them on 2 field trips to 1 sheep farm and to 1 hen farm. And the women left the workshop with not only a sense of empowerment, but realizing that there are female role models who support them. Female role models who came all the way from Washington, D.C. to South Africa to really implement that change no one ever thought they would even be able to do. So, as you can see, the 2 ladies here and their chickens. When I went back to my desk, and when I received the phone call from how the project went, I merely had a smile of content on my face. But it wasn't because I, greatly thought, oh, wow, I'm the own United Nations of myself, and I did this. Wow, great, awesome. No, but because I realized that there is actually a power that through a mere idea, we were able to put out there that actually implemented change and helped someone. So, they say that people who walk with the crowd usually go no further than the crowd. But people who walk alone are able to go far and to go places no one has ever been before. And that is what the story of John did to me. It provoked that change inside of me that made me dedicate, besides my working time, my personal free time, to dedicate my fight on hands and to provoke my own United Nations of I. Now, to get out of that societal colorblindness, we all need to work together. I would encourage each and every one of you to understand that the change you want to provoke and the change you see inside of yourself is merely there. You just need to know what your own sustainable development goals are. And let's be clear, change cannot be provoked just by us. We need to work together, because no Autonomalverbrauch, as we would love to say in Austria, no German, no European Union, no United Nations of I, no World Bank group, no Claudia will be able to provoke that change if we don't work as a common force. And what John taught me was an African proverb that says, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together. So I have made it my personal mission to implement one vision towards a common mission. And I hope that by me telling this very short but yet elusive story, that you will take a little bit of time to look inside of yourself and truly realizing what your own sustainable development goals and your own United Nations of yourself are. Because it only takes your one vision for a personal and common mission. And I hope as much as John's story has ignited that change inside of my gut feeling and a change inside of me, it will also do it for you. And maybe, or hopefully, I can be your little John. For you to realize that we can end poverty, and it is possible. Thank you very much.